Good afternoon, everybody. Before I forget, can we stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance, and Miss Jackie can lead us.
Join me, put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, at this time, we would like to convene the open session. Is the police chief still here, or did he bail? He bailed. I want to report a crime, chief. Someone stole my hammer, my gavel, and I'm back to this amateur thing. So we will convene open session with the noted that my hammer was stolen. At this time, individuals wishing to address the city council on any topic, including the mayor's gavel, are requested to complete a speaker card and deliver it to the city clerk staff prior to the item being heard by the city council. Please observe a 3-minute limit for communications, and once called upon to speak, state your name and city of residence for the record. I feel like I just read this. With that, we're going to open communications from the public. You know, you get 3 minutes. Sylvia, are there any speaker cards?
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards.
All right. Chief, the hammer has been found. That is quick action on CPD's part.
Good job, Chief.
Got a crack police department over here. All right, agenda item 1, City Park report on City Park revitalization project. Donna Finch, the great, will and Tracy Martin, also great, they will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the City Council. I am very excited to be here today to present you with 3 very thoughtful and innovative design concepts for our City Park revitalization project. As you know, this project, the revitalization of City Park, as well as the entire downtown 6th Street corridor, is a very big priority for the City Council, and this project in particular has been a huge priority for our department. So we are really excited and pleased to be here today to finally start to see this project come to life and present these 3 concepts to you. So the purpose of this meeting today and our ask is that the City Council review the 3 design concepts and provide feedback on what you like or what you don't like about each of the concepts. We are not necessarily looking for a selection of any one concept, but just more of your general feedback of the overall layouts, the location and placement of the building, the skate park. There are several elements that we really would like your feedback on today. So the format of our presentation today is going to be just an overview of the project background, so all of the work that we have undertaken to get to this point today. Then we're going to talk about the overall design process, our work on the City Park Master Plan, and all of the steps that we've undergone to get to the development of the 3 design proposals. Then I will turn it over to Tracy to talk about next steps and introduce Rios, and then Rios is going to go in depth through each of the design strategies. So to start with the project background, the City Council, as you already know, is very familiar with our strategic plan. We have a vision and a purpose to create a community that is safe, vibrant, and family-friendly, where everyone can thrive. And there are 6 goals in particular that will help us achieve this vision and purpose. And the goal of sound infrastructure has a specific objective to redevelop City Park, including the development of a new full-service, purpose-built community center. So the work that we've undertaken to get to this point is really in furtherance of this citywide strategic plan and this overall objective to redevelop City Park. So as you know, we initiated a City Park master planning process in line with the strategic plan goal. This process started in June of 2022, and it was an 18-month process that was really community-based and community-driven. We did a lot of outreach and marketing with the surrounding community, as well as the greater Corona community at large, which included door knocking, providing door hangers with information about our survey, doing a pop-up event, creating a video. There was just so much outreach that went out to really get some valuable feedback from the community on what they wanted to see for the future of City Park. And through this outreach effort, we received over 2,100 survey responses that really helped define the amenities that you see within the three concepts here today. As you know, this master plan was adopted by the City Council on July 19th of 2023, and that kicked off the design process. So through the community outreach process, there were several amenities that were identified by the community that they wanted to see in the new City Park facility. Some of the top amenities include new walking trails, some new revitalized playgrounds, picnic shelters or pavilions, a botanical garden, a place for a splash pad, a new community center. So there's a lot of elements that you see here in the chart on this slide that really helped define what came together in the overall massing plan for this project. And then just building on the community outreach slide, some of the reasons that people take or visit City Park or just parks in general throughout the community is to let their kids play, to exercise, to enjoy nature, to relax. These are all of the things that we really kept in mind as we started to move forward with fleshing out these design concepts. So as you see here, all of that work led to a massing plan that was developed by our consulting team when we underwent the master planning process. And this massing plan was really used as a foundation to identify all of those elements for the new project and to give us a starting point to base all of our design work off of. So the design process kicked off on December 4th of 2023, where we selected our design firm, which we will introduce you to in just a moment. We did a site visit at the City Park location on December 12th, where we evaluated all of the current amenities that are at the park, the placement of the amenities, the current condition. It gave the design team a chance to see the park, which they had already seen it, but they were able to walk it and visit the location with our project staff and get input from us on what we saw for some of the opportunities and challenges for that area. In addition, there were stakeholder interviews that began on January 4th of 2024 and occurred over a 2-week process where we interviewed all of our city council members as well as our park and recreation commissioners to identify what your priorities and goals are for this project. And based off of all of that feedback that they received from the commission and the council, the design team went to work and created the 3 design concepts that you have here today. These concepts were presented to our Park and Recreation Commission last Tuesday on February 13th. The commission provided some very valuable feedback that we were able to put together in some feedback slides that you'll see later in the presentation, as well as we were then able to launch a community outreach campaign to get some feedback from the community on what they felt about the 3 design processes. And that included a pop-up event on February 17th, where we brought the models that we have here today out to City Park and captured a lot of the feedback that we're going to share right now. So one of the things that we felt was important to show, and this slide I think does a very good job of capturing it, is the feedback that we received from the stakeholder sessions. And these were the interviews that we conducted with the City Council and the commissioners. So the items that you see on the left side of this slide where the line is straight shows where we have a lot of consensus on what should be included at the City Park facility. That includes the aquatic center, that the fact that the park should be a multi-generational facility, that the trees remain, that the Corona Park ecosystem remains natural. Those are all of the things that we found a lot of agreement on. As you start to get to the middle and the right side of the slide, you'll see where some of the opinions start to diverge. We really saw some difference in opinions when it came to the scale of the park. Do we want to see a local park or more of a regional park? There were different opinions on that. Cost is a major concern for some, while others really want us to go big on this project. Also, the need for the community center was questioned, and others thought, well, maybe we make the whole site a civic center. And then another big one is the skate park. So these are some of the areas where our design team is able to come in with design solutions to help us kind of bridge that gap and come to a consensus on these items. And these also are some of the areas that we would really like to get feedback from the council on at the end of today's session. So as I mentioned, we held a pop-up event this past Saturday, and we also did a survey push through our social media and city website, and we were able to capture some pretty good feedback on the 3 concepts. I don't want to put the cart before the horse because I know you're still about to get the presentation on the concept. So we want to make sure you have a fresh set of eyes and opinions about this. But we felt that it was important to share this information with the council as you evaluate the three concepts and you start to give us some feedback on them. All right. Luckily, this chair has wheels. Okay, so some of the things that we felt that the community expressed that they like about concept number 1, which is the crown concept, is that the building is shaped like a crown, which is representative of Corona's history, that there is a large central play area or area for events and activities. They liked that the parking was close by, that the pool is located by the plunge, that the kids' play area is near the sports area. So I'm not going to go through every one of the likes on here, but we felt that it was important to highlight some of the things that the folks liked about the first concept. And then some of the dislikes were that there was too much open space. So you start to see kind of both ends of the spectrum, that the botanical gardens were too small, that the separated play areas weren't necessarily placed in the right locations. So again, I'm not going to go through each of the likes and dislikes. We do have the information before you on the slides if you want to take a chance to look through those, but we felt that it was important to share some of the information from these surveys. For concept number 2, this is the flowering fields concept. Some of the likes are that the layout is a flower. You see 2 different flower designs here, both from the layout of the building as well as the layout of the botanical gardens and play areas. Just the overall gardens were a plus on this concept, that there's parking on both sides of the park. The community center is located closer to the center. So those are a few of the likes. And then the dislikes are that there are no clear walking or running trails, that there's too much going on, or the facility looks a little bit too crowded, that there are fewer sports opportunities, and that there are 2 skate parks. And then concept number 3, which is the Wonder Loop concept, some of the likes are that there is an actual walking loop that is built throughout the entire park, that this design does a really good job of reflecting nature. Everything is spread out. It has also a flowering design. And then some of the dislikes are that the parking is not spaced out enough. This one has a lot of the parking leaning more towards the west side of the park. That there is not enough space for a concert or a soccer game, that everything is too spread out. So as you can see, there's a varying opinions on each of the designs, but we do have that information for you.
Ms. Finch, on the slide prior, it said on dislikes, loud is close to quiet. Oh, okay, got it.
Oh, yes.
Close to residents? Okay.
No, so the type of uses, you have loud activities close to quiet activities.
Oh, I understand. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Tracy Martin now. She is going to talk about next steps and then give us an introduction to the Rios team.
Good afternoon. So we'll just talk briefly about some next steps, and I don't want to take too long because I know we all want to get into the good stuff. Our upcoming activities are going to be revise the designs. We're trying to get it down to 1, based on your feedback, based on feedback from the surveys, based on feedback that we heard from the Parks Commission. We'd like to come back to the Parks Commission in April, early April, get their final approval and recommendation to bring it to you guys, and then also present to you mid-April. And get hopefully what will be a final approval on our design. We'll also be presenting an operations plan to you at that time. And then after that, we will start working on CEQA, presenting to Planning Commission and construction documents. Briefly, an introduction to Rios. I know that you met some of them when we had our stakeholder meeting sessions, but this is the team. We have Mark Rios, Bob Hale, Sabina Chang, Elizabeth Wendell, Brett Miller, Chris Skeens, Haran Liu, Jason Shinoda, and Simone Lepenta. They are a worldwide multidisciplinary firm, and I think this is one of the quotes from their particular their RFP proposal that they sent in, and it's really appropriate for this design as well, or for this project. Design is a dynamic exercise influenced by a collection of people representing diverse perspectives. And that pretty much sums up what we have here with City Park. And even with Corona, we really have a melting pot of differences that all seem to blend together wonderfully. Rios, why did we pick them? They understood from the beginning the importance of City Park. City Park is different. There's other large parks in Corona that were built specifically for sports parks. City Park's purpose was and remains a gathering spot, a hub for parades, picnics, music, and art, the place to learn to swim, the place to get away from traffic and technology and enjoy nature, the place to celebrate as a community. This was also from their proposal. It's just kind of an illustration that how they view the park or a space. It's a living entity. It functions in different ways and purposes throughout the course of a day, week, or season. Spaces are flexible and can adapt to different types and levels of activities. It can be two things at once. It can be both a neighborhood park and a community space at the same time. It doesn't have to be defined as one or the other. Our ask tonight, again, is that you review the 3 city park design strategies and provide feedback on each. I'll be turning it over to Rios at this time, and they're going to walk you through some of these boards before inviting you down to see the models in person. Thank you very much.
Hello. Good afternoon. Very, very happy to be here. We've been really excited to get the project to this point, and have really enjoyed getting to know you all and the community and really listening to all of the input that we've gotten. It's been very interesting, and I think we've been able to use that input to come up with some very divergent sort of schemes here. So we have a very talented office in general, and we've got a multidisciplinary team that's integrated and works as one team here. So I'm going to introduce Brett Miller as one of our senior landscape architects for the project here. And then we're going to hand it off to each of us to sort of go through various pieces of the presentation here before inviting you all down to go through all of the material and whatever detail you want to look at it. The one thing I just want to really re-emphasize that everybody has said sort of is we're not asking you to pick a scheme. We're asking you for your input and reaction to all of the schemes so that in the end we can synthesize that into a scheme that's going to really be able to be the best of all of the input that we get.
Thanks, Bob. All right, so to start, we came up with our big statement here. And this is that we want to collaborate in shaping a meaningful catalyst of growth for growth and community development in the heart of Corona, using the confluence of history, natural systems, and the needs of the community. We celebrate the past while planning for a reimagined future for Corona City Park. Oh, louder? Okay. And so where do we start, right? And our first effort was to go through this discovery phase, right? And I have all these verbs on here intentionally as past tense as things that we did, right? And it was more than just the park or the city, but let's look at the region, right? Let's look at Southern California. Let's look at the past of the larger scale elements and influences on the site. And then as we get closer and closer to modern day, we start to narrow this down to the city and then to the history of the park itself. This is showing the confluence of a lot of the watersheds in the greater Southern California region that all land in Corona. Showing some of the influences of the agricultural history, the natural history, and then the iconic Grand Boulevard, and from the inception of the city. We put together a timeline starting 1789, I think is what that says up there, to modern day, to talk about the founding, the development of the circle, the races, the when the park was established and created, And this was actually a really exciting process for us because of how excited you all are about the history of Corona. I mean, there was no shortage of historical photos and notes and dates and information, a lot from people in this room, but also, you know, through our digging through Facebook and a lot of that information. So what we started to do is look at the ecosystem of parks in Corona, right? And so what this is showing is left to right is the leftmost circle being City Park, and as you move to the right, it's every one of those blocks is another mile radius away from City Park. And then top to bottom is the lowest, the smallest parks, with the largest park being Santana up top. And I think this paints a really interesting picture because I think the most prominent aspect of this diagram is kind of this void we have, right? We have City Park, and then there's this kind of void of large green spaces and parks between City Park, kind of until you get to Santana a couple miles away. And
I'm so sorry.
No,
I'm just
go
having
ahead.
a hard time hearing what you're saying. Can you just speak up?
Speak up a little
to the mic?
louder.
Or just, yeah.
You
I'm
know-
just having a hard time.
Okay, thank you. Is this one better?
Maybe just go up to the podium, that may be better.
Sure.
And can you go back really quick to that last slide? Just want to,
Absolutely. Is this better? Great,
yeah, that's great.
great.
So when you say ecosystem, is that the size of the park?
This is looking at the size of the park, the distance away from City Park, and then the
I
amenities.
got that X, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to see, I didn't know what the circles were.
Sure. That's just the size and acreage of each
Got
one
it.
of the parks.
Perfect, thank you.
And so then to zoom in a little further, right, we're getting a little closer to the park now. This is a 2-mile radius, give or take. We wanted to make sure we could get the top portion of Santana Park in here to kind of show the nearness of adjacent parks and the nearness of other amenities that these parks provide throughout the city. And so as after we go through the history and after we look at locally, regionally, and citywide for the park, we started to look at the park itself, and the desire of this phase was to go through and to sort of establish what are our parameters or our framework that we have moving forward going into this park. So, for example, looking at the land use, right? Everything around it, from commercial, residential, industrial, mixed use, looking at a vast array of uses that are immediately around the park. As Tracy had kind of mentioned earlier, for this to be a new green heart on the eastern side of the 6th Street corridor as part of the downtown development plan, it kind of sharing the bookends with where we are now at City Hall. And then we started to look at what are some of the things we want the park to achieve, right? And I think what this is trying to illustrate is that we want to engage with the neighborhood, the surrounding streets, and we want to really feel like when you're on one of those streets, you have a sense of place. You were at City Park, and that's a part of it, even from the periphery, and have those uses bleed into the center of the park.
One more time, can you go back one more slide?
Sure.
When you say catalyze 6th Street corridor,
Mm-hmm.
are you talking about the sense of place? Are you talking about some kind of other, because you guys used the word catalyst, and I want to dive into those when we get to that point, but I didn't know if this was a good spot, or you just want to keep going and we'll come back.
Sure, and I mean, we can keep going, but the idea is we want that sense of engagement. We don't want you to drive by this space and for it to feel like it's just a big open, empty space. We want it to really engage with what's going on the south side of 6th Street and also to Grand Boulevard, down 6th Street through the downtown corridor. And then our trees, so we have a list that we have 400-something trees that we went through and categorized. They have some that are listed on there as dying or diseased, not doing too great, up to the protected species, the Quercus agrifolias, and then we have the giant ficus on the southwest corner. And what we wanted to use this tree canopy study to do is to start to set up a framework of what are our constraints on the site, right? So this is kind of the inverse. So the red now is becoming things we don't want to touch. And if you squint, I think what you see in this diagram is that you start to see the red areas, but more importantly, the green, the space behind it becomes more apparent to see what are our opportunities that we have on the site for building the quantities of space that we can add amenities to, build things, build paths around, while still preserving, the powerful tree canopy that's on the site as it exists.
Oh, sorry, one more time, go back.
Sure.
The palms that are along the entranceway on the east side, are those being removed or slated for
So
removal, or?
the reason we have the to be removed or transplanted, the palms, we didn't want to have those as restricted species because those are fairly easy to move, right? We don't want to bend and move. The idea with those is to be able to move them. We want to preserve as much as we can. The palms are going to be the easiest things out there to move, so we wanted to.
Got it. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I like the questions. Keep them coming. Also, we've got the plunge, the existing electrical panels, and some of the utility runs that we have on Cress off to the west, as well as the municipal plunge on the northeast corner that we don't want to touch those. And this, to kind of contrast the constraints map, these are opportunities, right? Here are the spaces where we can really start to build and have some freedom to move here while still protecting, as many of the trees as possible. Looked at view sheds. There are things you can see from the site, a few different mountain range corridors, and then we're highlighting the 91 freeway visibility too. Is something as a foreground object that may be able to be screened, but also provides some sound pollution on the site that we'll try our best to mitigate. It's a lot noisier on the north side, and then 6th and Grant can get a little noisy as well. So that kind of helps us determine what programs are more conducive to higher volumes of noise, and then what can we put in the quieter, more peaceful areas of respite throughout the center of the park. Looking at shade in the morning when the sun's coming in from the northeast, the shade at noon, and then the shade in the afternoon where the sun is in the southwest. I think a big thing that we're trying to drive with these diagrams is the location of our swim and water facilities, being able to say, we want to make sure those are in warm locations, those aren't being shaded too much, and also trying to delineate spaces that are going to remain shaded throughout the day for things like cover and seating and just really utilizing the trees as best we can. This was a study we did to look at what the front door of the site would be. Where are people coming from? How are they arriving? We did a bunch of these little studies. We put in random addresses in Corona and Riverside and Norco, and then had it route to the park to see, where are people mostly going to be arriving? And the overwhelming emphasis was on the southwest and southeast corners of the park. For both vehicular entry and then hopefully as 6th Street becomes to be reactivated and the downtown revitalization plans put into play, we have all that pedestrian traffic that'll be coming in from the west. Another big concern is parking, right? And I think the target we're shooting for is 340 parking spaces on site. That's a bit more than Santana has, to give you a comparison on that one. But the question came up frequently that, if we have a big event, if you have a concert in the park, 340 spaces isn't going to cut it. So some of the solutions we were looking at are what are some other remote lots that we can set up for shuttle services or things like that. Because I think for a space this big, even if we were to park most of the site, I don't think it would be sufficient to hold a 15,000 person concert in the park. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Skeens, Senior Project Designer at Rios. It's great to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about programming and the elements that are going to go into the building. As Donna mentioned, we had extensive coordination and consultation with both city staff and with all of you regarding the elements that want to be included into this park. And as everyone agrees, this wants to be a fantastic aquatic center, as you can see in this diagram on the left-hand side. We absolutely want to preserve the trees. It has to function as a multi-generational center for young people, for old people, for teens, for the whole community. There has to be adequate parking, and we really want to connect it to the rest of the city, to Grand Boulevard, to the downtown revitalization plan. Now, as we move to the right, we start to get a little bit of divergence. Is it a local park? Is it a regional park? Do we want it to be a big, go big or go home kind of place, or do we want it to be a little more, modest? And then, we definitely want to bring history in. We want it to be more modern. These are areas where there's some divergence, but we really feel like through design, through our work, we can come together to create a unified scheme. As we move a little bit more to the right, we see things like, the skate park, or the need to make it a civic center or a community center. And so those are areas where we're going to need your help to kind of chart a direction. So looking at the master plan that was done previous, one thing we noticed is that there are 3 buildings in that master plan. And looking at the types of programs that are being asked of us, like aquatic center, gym, fitness area, we really felt like there was a lot of efficiencies in taking those 3 buildings, which in total was around 50,000 square feet, and combining them into a single building. And this is going to create a much more efficient thing, because you can imagine you can use the same locker rooms for the gym, for the fitness center, for the aquatic center, and so it makes sense to have them all co-located.
Chris, may I ask you a quick question before we can pass this slide? The sizes and the rooms in the building, that was given to you by staff, right? That's not a Rios-driven?
The staff worked with us to create with a list of programmatic spaces, which we're going to talk about on the next slide. And then some of those areas were driven by staff request, but some of them were driven just from Rios's research and understanding through working with other community centers.
Okay. Can you delineate which one of those when you get to the next slide? That'd be
Absolutely.
great. Thank you.
Yeah. And so the point of this slide being that it's been our desire to bring it into a single building, which we think makes the most sense. And so here is what was sort of asked of us initially, which is a sort of list of really wonderful programmatic elements, some of which are a fitness center, an aerobics room, a gym. We asked for 4 basketball courts, running track, racquetball, banquet center with kitchen, a number of conference room, community rooms, education spaces, support spaces, and including the aquatic center in the park. All of this added up to around 100,000 square feet, which is about twice the size that was allocated in the master plan and was budgeted for. So we worked with the city to see how we can shift some of those spaces to the outside. So you can see the running track and some of the sports courts are moving to the outside. And we were able to identify areas where these spaces could be combined into flexible spaces that can provide the same function as some of the spaces that were eliminated. And so working with city staff, we were able to bring the building within area of 50,000 square feet. And this is the program that we've started with and what you're seeing on site here in the models. Did you have specific questions about any of the program elements?
I was just curious about where the 8,000 square foot ballroom came from, or what was the driver for that? What do you guys see as, in your experience? And then, where is that use driven? And then a basketball court, the other stuff seems like that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Fitness exercise room, 5,000 square feet, is that a reasonable number based on the work that you guys do? The game room, 30 by 50, is that, how do you come up with that? Is that a programmatic number based upon expected use within a certain, I'm just curious, or were those numbers standard numbers that you use?
Well, a lot of these numbers came, I would say for the banquet hall, for example, it was requested that it serve around 400 people. And so if you just fit, enough tables in there for 400 people, you're going to get a banquet hall of about this size. Okay. For the game room, we did layouts where we would say, oh, here's a pool table and here's all the various components, and we, did a study of what would be the appropriate size. Now we're at the very beginning of looking at that, and so this is going to develop and shift as we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
How large is the banquet room at the CCC? Do we have a square footage on that?
About the same, I think.
We don't have the square footage, but it can accommodate up to 300 people.
Up to 300?
Yes.
So this would be just like 100 more people?
It would be 100 more people, and I think one advantage here is you can see there's a dashed line in the middle. It can be subdivided into 2 separate spaces, so it can have 2 200-person events at the same time.
Thank you.
And so this is the program that we arrived at and that we're using to create our schemes. And so then we're looking at site opportunities using that design framework that Brett just discussed. We see that by adding parking to that northern edge, by turning that into a diagonal parking space, we get about 70 parking spaces. We're looking to get around 315, 330 spaces on the site itself. We really are interested in emphasizing and creating and activating that 6th Street edge. So you can see there's a kind of urban edge connecting into that corridor and really making it a dynamic space, and then some kind of connection to downtown. And then there are certain sort of diagrammatic principles that we've been using in all of the schemes to make decisions and drive the organization. The first is a single point of entry, and that is, I think, critical for security reasons. And for sort of sense of entry or iconicity. And so this is, you can enter the building in one place and go to different areas, all from a single central location. The second is sort of spatial grouping. So, putting all of the fitness program in one area, all of the banquet program, all of the sort of education flexibility space in a different area. And then really trying to enhance community. So this is going to be a center used by different people of different ages, of different interests. How can the building facilitate the interaction of those different groups? How can it have a sort of cross-pollinating effect of people who are there for different reasons, seeing that different things are going on? So, someone who's there to work out can see there's an art class going on, or someone who's there for a senior dance program can see, a fitness activity that they maybe want to do later on in the week. And so, we really want different citizens to come together and communicate and talk to each other and see each other. And then finally, what's true of all Rios buildings, we are really concerned about how does the landscape integrate with the building? How does it affect the shape and how it relates to its surroundings? And so I'm going to hand it over to our design directors, Jason and Simone, who will talk about the schemes themselves.
Hi, I'm Jason Shinoda. I'm a design director and landscape architect. And Simone here is an architecture design director with me, and he's going to join me in walking you through the 3 design schemes. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through all of the material and then invite you down to walk around the models and ask questions and dive a little bit deeper. So to start with, I think you're all a little bit familiar with the 3 schemes by now, but the first scheme we're calling is the Corona Crown. Obviously, this is taking inspiration from the Circle City and the iconography of the identity of the city. And so that heart of the crown really becomes this outdoor living room or flexible event space heart of this side of downtown in this scheme. All of the energy of the park surrounds around the central lawn feature that roughly takes the same place as the existing lawn feature. And if I go to the next slide, around that kind of spins off all of the other program of the park. And so we have picnic spaces, lawn spaces, play spaces, botanic gardens that kind of radiate from that central heart. What we're showing here is on this ring around the southeast or southwest corner that we could potentially have a linear water feature that follows that promenade that circles around the main lawn, and then obviously the building over on the right, on the left side. In this scheme, we've split the parking between 80% of it on the east side, 20% on the west side, and then as you get further west, you get a little bit more of the noisy program. So we are tucking the sports program and the skate park off to the northwest corner. You can kind of see a little bit clearer here how all that programming works. So you have this kind of inner ring promenade around the community canvas, play spaces further west, and then as you get further west from that, the sports and the skate park.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us over here. I'm really proud and honored to be able to speak about this project with you today. So, as you might have understood, we take a great pride in creating buildings that can be seamless with landscape design. We don't believe that you can just design a building and plop it into a park and call it a day. So one of the most exciting things that we've done for the project since the beginning was that we closed ourselves into a conference room with all the designers, and we started, trying to find ways that we can create ideas that can be seamlessly integrating architecture and landscape. And what is the base of this design? It's always the acknowledgement and the research and the understanding of the conditions of the site, your history, your culture, and the richness of this territory. So in the crown scheme, the building wants to be a very rational and simple building. It might appear complicated at first glance, but if you squint your eyes, you can literally see there is a linear building with a double corridor on one and the other side that functions around the central lobby, and it wants by itself and its shape hug the park. So in that way, it's almost like wanting to create this immersive relationship between the architectural human gesture and the nature that is surrounding it. So what we imagined was a building that can be thought as a continuous gesture on the landscape. Imagine a beautiful canopy that can hug the park and it can lead you to walk around the building and see through these spaces. And all of them can be seamlessly integrated with the park on one side and with the amenities on the other side. So the building itself is literally the intersection between two forces. The forces of hugging the park and creating a facade that can be very porous, and having this gesture of creating a seamless transition between the indoor and outdoor, and a very functional, rational functionality of the circulation spaces with a continuous circulation corridor on one side and the other to integrate a very clear articulation of the spaces itself. So when you enter from the ground lobby, which is put in adjacency to the parking and to the 6th Street, you know immediately where you have to go to enter the building. And the shape itself, it's obviously an homage to your history, but at the same time, it's a way to really celebrate this idea of unity, of a very strong and Unitarian gesture that can be represented by this building and to be almost like the crown and the symbol of the park itself.
The red arrows, that's the main, on the circulation and access
Yes, ma'am.
image. The red arrows, that's how you enter the building. And what are the blue arrows?
The blues are all the potential ways that we can open up the building with sliders and with like openable facades that can allow for an indoor-outdoor activities and therefore be seamless integrated with the exteriors.
And then what is the yellow and the dot?
The yellow and the dot are potential secondary views, point of entries that we can have for exiting or for visual integration with the activities of the building itself.
So potentially this building could have a whole lot of entry points and exit points.
Entry points 1, exit points multiple.
Got it. Thank you.
So I also want to invite you to see these plans as a diagram, meaning that they are not whatsoever, like a full design building, because this is not the moment to design a building. This is the moment to get together and understand what we want this park and this building to do. But we also want to try to find ways in which the building can act differently, like what Chris was saying, that the body language of the building itself can create or instigate a different way that the community can operate within itself. And so in this particular scheme, the form is almost trying to convey this idea that the community is gathering around this central core and the building is hugging it. And we imagine that you can walk around the building, you can walk around the park and really have at a glance immediately a complete 360 visual of the park, in itself. The red functions over here are the sport-oriented functions. The yellow are the recreational ones, and the blue are the educational spaces. And so what we can see over here is the clear scheme of grouping of the functions to make up for a very simple and legible layout.
Okay, moving to the second scheme, which we're calling Flowering Fields. This scheme is really celebrating the agricultural heritage of Corona, and particularly we were really inspired by the packing labels, which featured the pollinators and the flowers, and that kind of nostalgic memory of the agricultural field and all of the blooms that you would smell there. And so in this scheme, whereas the previous scheme, you have the kind of central lawn space that has the center of energy kind of radiating from there, we have a kind of field condition of park, which is accented or punctuated by these two flowers, which are destinations. And so those destinations are the community center on the east side, and then what we're envisioning here as a botanical play experience or destination on the west side. And so you can see here what we envision as the fields or the groves are the margins of the park along 6th and Quarry. And those are primarily picnic areas and spaces that can be flexible for markets and other kinds of events. So really thinking about how 6th Street could be activated on the south side and using that side as a market space or a place for festivals. And then really more of a neighborhood park on the north side. And then we have the community center, obviously on the east side. Each of those lobes in between what we're calling the petals can house different functions. And so in this diagram, we're showing the pool in one of those petals, the skate park in one of those petals, and Simone will get a little bit more into the programming of the building itself. And then on the west side, you can see underneath the existing tree canopy, we're envisioning this as a real kind of exuberant destination of play. So different play spaces that are surrounded by botanical gardens that could be, blooming at all times of year. And so it really becomes this kind of event or attraction for people to come to. And that kind of gives way to a more natural space off to the west as the park interfaces with Grand. We're showing sports courts along Quarry Street in the Grove area on the north side. And again, here we're splitting the parking between about 75% on the east side and 25% on the west side.
Thank you, Jason. So if the landscape is a flower, the building couldn't be something different. So the building over here is also a flower. It's conceived as a flower. And what we loved about this building is it's essentially a courtyard. So if the first scheme is a linear building, this one has an introverted conditions for the use of the space and for the experience itself. So if you imagine, this building to be an enclosed space with a court in the center, we like the fact that this can also be seen as a way for the community to integrate and to see itself as the way that can be, having different type of opportunities for engagement and for a diverse use of it, meaning that the courtyard building offer a central space that can be semi-private and it can be used or shared by all the different activities, but at the same time can be used in conjunction with only one of the activities. And in that way it becomes almost like a more secured and separate space from the rest of the park. The building itself has this very iconic shape that in terms of the circulation is the only one that offers a single point of entry and a circular circulation space in the center of the courtyard that is open to the air, but is covered by a canopy, really fostering this idea that you can contaminate different type of opportunities and experience over here, going from one place to the other, and having this courtyard to really become the heart of the community and the community building. The shape of the flowers has also another attribute that the negative space that is embraced by the different lobes, it creates semi-courtyards that are open to the park and offer also opportunity for programming different type of activities outside that can be related or not with the space of the indoor. So in that way, you almost have a double flower, a flower for the building and one for the landscape that is adjacent and surrounding it. And that positive and negative condition creates this very interesting form, a very iconic form that is the most efficient in terms of surface. This is the smallest one. If I'm not mistaken, it's 50,000 square feet on the dot. But obviously, as a polyfaceted building, presents more linear square footage of the facade itself. How does it work? So we position the flower with a clear opening on the south. So the biggest entryway is positioned to the south towards the 6th Street. So that can become our main singular point of entry. And from there, you are welcome to the center of the courtyard. And from there, you have the opportunity to engage and enter all the other places of the building. The building are shaped and are located in the way that they meet the height requirement, meaning that we try to create almost like a crescent all around to face some of the building with the open space, so that we can create almost like a mute facade where we can have projections, or we can have murals and things like that. Can be something that the community can see itself reflected on. And we wanted to use the banquette with an exterior outdoor space that can also be seamlessly integrated with open doors over there, and also create a series of visual points and connectors between the outdoor and the indoor by fracturing the building itself at the intersection, and having over there point of exit and visual connectivities into the main courtyard. For the courtyard itself, we would love to discuss with you if you imagine this to be the same thing that is happening all over the park, meaning there could be something with very little trees and something that is an open space for smaller gathering, or can be almost like a very different experience, almost like a surprise, a wonder. And so it can have a totally different type of nature over there. There can be an explosion of colors. So when you enter the building, you have this beautiful new ecosystem that is portrayed in front of you when you approach and you enter the community itself.
Can you explain, back at that slide, so where's the point of entry, and where are the exits on this building?
So the main point of entry and lobby is in the south side, is the lobe that is facing the 6th Street, and it's the larger, let's say, space of intersection between the two separate lobes, meaning that we envision over there to have an open lobby, which is covered with a roof, but it feels spacious and open in plan, and that leads you to the exterior. And then the fraction between the different buildings can be secondary entries and secondary exits, where you can have visual into the building and outside to the park.
Thank you.
All right, and our third scheme is called Nature's Wonder Loop. So this scheme is really taking inspiration from the landscapes that surround Corona and bringing those into the park and experiencing those through a connective loop that ties all of the program along the perimeter of the park together. And so the diagram on the top right is trying to explain that you have this experiential wellness loop that, there was a lot of feedback from the community about wanting nature trails and that kind of thing in the park. This functions as that kind of experiential wellness loop. And then the colored dots kind of suggest all the different programs. And so what we're doing here is we're really activating the perimeter of the park, where, say, the first scheme was activating the center around that heart. The second scheme was activating these two big destinations. This one's really taking that program and distributing it around the perimeter of the park and tying that together with a loop. So the loop actually, as you walk along it, you're coming into contact and discovering all these different activities and all the different types of people that are using that trail around the site. And again, the idea here is also that we're bringing an experience of nature, of all the different kind of ecologies and natural systems surrounding Corona. So that's anything from the mountain landscape to the Chino Hills landscape to the desert landscape, bringing those experiences kind of in an abstract way into the park. In this scheme, we tested putting the building over on the west side, and so you'll see that the building becomes more of a gateway into the park and into that loop experience. The pool is also kind of nestled up onto the upper west corner there. Most of the parking then would become the Panhandle area, which we're calling on the west side off Grand. So all of that really becomes this big grand entrance to the community center, to the park. That's coupled with a smaller parking area off on Rimpau on the east side. And then you can see the red loop is really taking you through all these different experiential moments of play, of discovery, sports, skate park, basketball courts, picnic areas, barbecue areas. And then that center space is really left open as an open void space or lawn that can still host all of the kind of community events as needed. And of course, all these spaces can be flexed in scale, but the idea really is to keep this active perimeter that's tied together by this experiential loop. So here you can see again how some of that program is distributed in a much more kind of mixed way. So the play is more evenly distributed around the site, the water play close to the pool up in the northwest corner, picnic groves, botanical gardens, and then in this scheme we're keeping the noisier program over on the 6th Street and Rimpau corner.
So the beauty of this building is that it's almost like an hybrid solution from the first and the second that we just seen. So if the first one was a linear and the second was a courtyard, this one is an in-between, meaning that has some of the concept from the linear one and some of the concept from the courtyard. But at the same time, we wanted to have a building, number one, position on one side that the other two didn't explore. When you do a project like this, you question yourself a lot. And so we wanted to investigate all the potential opportunity on the site to respond to you guys with the best, the best action that we can take. So thinking about a building that could be in the east side, the only way that we could do that was we didn't want to impact too much the landscape and the trees because it's an asset that we want to really celebrate. So we call this building Dancing with the Trees because other than having a shape that it's reminiscent of the tree trunk, it's literally dodging the different trees that are on site, not just the trunks, but the canopies and the roots. And so the shape of the building has a double function. On the left side, it wants to be a gateway and present a very, I would say, iconic and monumental building that can be seen as the gateway to the park, but also representative of the entity that you are going to be discovered as a community center for the park itself. But on the other side is really a building that wants to negotiate its presence with nature. So it's bifurcated to accommodate for visual visibility into the park, but also to have a shape that can mitigate the presence of this human gesture within the park itself. And the heart of the center is this beautiful open lobby space that we imagine can have a great skylight on the center with this zenith light coming from the top, really welcoming and creating this sort of compression before you have this big expansion into the park. And so again, one center point of entry, which it's going to be right at the get-go when you left the parking, your car at the parking on the left side. And from there, your program is very clear. So from the center hub, you can have the sport group on the left side, and then the other two that are flanking the park itself, creating these interstitial spaces that can, again, be a way to integrate the building within the park. In this case, we wanted to place the pool on the right-hand side of the sport groups so they can have a great visibility, but also an integration with the building and also enough exposure to sun. So the building itself, it's very simple in its conception, as a central lobby and a series of spinal distribution spaces that allow you to get to every single part of the building and allows you to not mix the uses and experiences of the fruitors, meaning that if you wanted to go to the gym, you enter the main building, you turn left. If you want to go to the recreation part, you go to the right. So it's a very simple way to create a very experiential form and a very experiential building that is seamlessly integrated with the park itself. And we will offer you to come down and discuss more and take a look at the model and answer all your questions. Thank you so much.
Is on? Again?
Nice to meet you. Nice to see you.
So,
All right.
and we have a few mics we can pass around and just make sure that we can hear everybody.
We have a few mics. So looking at this crown design, oh, I didn't know it did that. Very cool. I just thought you were about to wreck things, typical gym standard. But so question, so are these seats?
Yeah.
Okay, and this is like a splash pad water feature? It's not a water fountain.
It's not a fountain.
That's good. That's good. We have bad experiences with water fountains. And then the aquatic center, it's connected to the sports group. The locker rooms serve both. I think that's great. Is this the lazy river?
Yeah, that's something we're exploring.
Is this the same size as the first conceptual we looked at. Sorry.
Yeah, so this is going to be sized for both regulation water polo and for competition, high school level competition swim.
In one of the original conversations, we had talked about there was like 2 pools, and then there was like an activity pool,
Yes.
and then there's that's the activity pool.
Yeah. Well, I will say that in all cases, we are only beginning to be specific about the things that we're designing. So you're going to see a skate park. It is a placeholder on the plan at this point.
Yeah.
And when we hear from you that you really want a lazy river and a separate activities pool, those are the types of things that are going to help us develop into the next round.
Because I was part of when we first started this conversation, I wanted a big aquatic center.
Yeah.
I wanted like an indoor aquatic center. I wanted a huge aquatic center. And seeing these renderings, they just look small. It looks smaller to me. It's a big site, but it looks smaller. Like I look at a basketball court and then I look at the swimming, and they look like the same size. So I don't know if it's to scale, but yeah, okay. Those are people, and this is the same. These are to scale.
Similar, yes.
So it's the same size as a basketball court, which seems small to me.
It does.
So anyway, those are my thoughts for the moment.
The size of the pool is really about regulation.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have more lanes, but the length.
It's 25 meters.
Yeah.
meter. I think it's 12 lines
eight.
right now.
It's
eight lanes.
Yeah,
That's the normal competition scale.
agreed.
But we could have other pool elements.
Yeah, I just had a grander vision for an aquatic center. This is the only location where we had an aquatic area, and where we would have an aquatic center. We have pools in other locations, but an aquatic center and the opportunity to have an aquatic center, this is it. So it looks smaller than I had hoped for. But I'll tell you. Yeah. I'm going to pass around the mic.
I think something with.
I mean, I don't know, do we all want to kind of give our thoughts?
Sure.
on
Yeah,
thoughts?
absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Maybe just one more on that. I think as we go through each one, I think it's really useful to us to also understand where is there a preferred location for the aquatic center, and then we'll talk about sizing and how to detail that. But does it make more sense here? Does it make more sense there?
So I like. Hello.
I like the location of the aquatic center over here. I am interested in what that play pool would look like. I think it's absolutely necessary to have a place for big kids to go and also little kids to go, a separate safe area. So I'd love to see some sort of, just some cool, outdoorsy type of play equipment inside the pool and, stuff like that. I think it's critical that we got to have some shade over there. You got to remember the parents are going to be sitting watching their kids, and it bakes out here. So I think it's beautiful, you guys. The skate park, obviously, I think we all have some concerns about the skate park. Just with our experiences with our current skate park, we've pretty much given up, and it's just tagged all the time, and we got to figure out a way to try to minimize that. I think way over here, I think it's going to be subject to tagging. So we can talk about it a little bit more when we get to that one, but I kind of felt like it needed to be closer to the action just so we could keep an eye on it. This panhandle, just in whatever we go with, I was thinking we definitely need to design it in a way that if we were ever able to acquire a property on either side, we could tie it all in nicely. I like this one because it had the larger grass area. But I saw some people thought it was too big. So, the main thing, the number one thing, really, or number two thing was, what's the park for? It's for the kids, so the kids can play. Well, they have a lot of stuff to do here, but grass is the most basic, number one thing probably that kids are going to go kick a soccer ball around or whatever. So, and I do like the idea of having concerts here and how that would compare with our South Lawn concert versus our 6th Street concert space. And then, end up closing down 6th Street for the street fairs and tie the band into it and food trucks. So I was thinking the bigger the better in the grass area. But I'd like to hear some other thoughts from my colleagues on that. And I think for now, that's it.
So just two things. One, I used to do competitive swimming, so 25 meters is the space.
Yep.
So my only question on the lazy river part is safety. I know that I talked to some folks that run pools, and they tell you lazy river for a kid's pool is a nightmare to supervise, because someone drowns, you're not going to see them right away. You have to have more people to watch. So I'm concerned about that. Placement, as someone who spent, like, I think from the time I was 5 until I was 12 at a pool, it is loud. I mean, it is loud between whistles and kids screaming, and there's houses right here. So I'm a little concerned about that. So I don't know about like how that, that screening or how that works, because I can tell you it is loud, like really loud.
I will say one thing we have learned through this process is that this lot is actually a vacant lot owned by the city. Yeah, this one here. This one is not. Got it.
Okay, so second, the entryway being here, I love the design. Hello, there we go. I love the design. I am worried that you're going to be pushing all of your folks through the lobby here when, like, I don't know what the percentage of use is. So are most of the people going into these rooms, so they're having to walk through these other rooms or walk into them? I get the adjacency of this, but that's a you guys problem. Yes. Go ahead.
Just a diagram. Yeah. Just a diagram. And the more we're gonna get into the design, the more we're gonna start to explore what this thing can do.
See what you're working again. So
right these days, we're putting this thing to the test, and so we were already thinking about what else can we do with this thing. Do we really need just one lobby? Do we want two? Do we want to have an open space?
Absolutely, just a concern or a question. I do love the linear water feature. I think it's great. I think that when I see people at a park, I live, if I looked out my backyard and I could throw a rock, I hit Santana Park. So people are at the park playing sports. If you go to Mountain Gate, which I live closer to now, it's people just walking around and existing in the park. They're playing tennis. They're just existing. They're walking through. So I love the loop concept. I still think there's an idea that you can find ways to get the loops in here, because you guys have a blank space. You guys will figure that out. You guys are smart. The other part is same with the noise. I do worry about pickleball being so close to there are homes right across the street, and we've already had issues, with other folks, and I certainly don't want to victimize anyone. And I agree with Jim. The skate park is living next to it for 21 years. It's a skate park. There's not much you can do. My kids went to the skate park that was at City Park for a long time until they, won too many needles in their stuff. But I don't know how you do that. I don't. I do worry a little bit about him being the Panhandle, because it's a little bit hidden. Mm-hmm. So, and I like the idea. I mean, I think we're open to purchasing more land to do things with, but I think, frankly, us doing this is going to make those people probably want to hang on to that a little bit more. So I want to make sure, and I think I brought it up in the interviews about security and being able to have visuals, so the area is able to be patrolled. There are eyes on it quickly without having to have some intrusiveness that you're having the officer has to get out of his car or a truck or her truck and go out and, meander about to see what's in there, because we will have some safety security issues until we, can program things. I love the Botanic Gardens. Thank you for bringing those back. It was one of the things I had pushed for, and thank you for keeping the trees, and especially the ficus in the corner. The last design was a little bit scary. But yeah, I think that's all I have my comments on this. And then just, where things go, I figured that's your guys'. My idea was that if you're going to put a lobby, that you would want the lobby to be accessible to what its most intended use would be. Okay. But like I said, this is more your guys' gig, so I'll let Tom go now.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback.
Oh, I remember going to Santana Park and throwing rocks at Wes's house. Guess you can't do that anymore. Go to Mountain Gate. I love this design, period. You guys said some magical things too when you were giving your display on this, and so you built windows into this and this side, and you want?
I've been holding it long enough.
But you mentioned that they're going to be operable windows, right? Like they'll be able to open up and fresh air can get in, and it merges outside with inside.
So the idea, one thing that we forgot to mention is that the park is not flat. The park is higher over there and lower over here. So naturally, this is the most intelligent place to put the building on. And so we were thinking that this gesture is really a very simple, minimal thing that is kind of like getting everything together, but it's playing with the terrain. So if you imagine like a little berm over there, you can have natural slope where people can sit and look at a concert that is hosted over here. In the back, you're going to have the surround.
Any idea what the capacity would be in here for?
Of course.
15,000.
Yeah.
15,000 people.
How many?
15,000.
And that's just in the pool.
And that, and that's why Brent was talking about these studies that we've done for parking, because parking is not going to be able to handle it. So satellite parking.
But just because you could fit 15,000.
It doesn't mean that you have to.
Parking's going to be fine. I'm not.
But we're
Great.
going to have a Rager there,
Great.
Wes.
Great.
Might be a kegger.
But if you want, you can have 15,000 people or 1,500.
Okay, but the walls are going to be operable, right? They do.
So
open up?
most likely what we would love to design is a continuous canopy over here.
Okay.
So it's an, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And then, just being a builder, you can keep HVAC units off of the roof. You can do that, right?
We can conceal.
No vents
we can
and.
conceal things from the roof, absolutely.
I mean, it's cool if you want to put a sign up there, maybe some lights or something. But other than that,
It's a great question.
okay. And then I too you can just kill the skate park. I think we don't need it. And then has anybody talked to these guys about buying their land? Have those
If I'm
conversations?
not mistaken,
I can answer that. We're working on that to just test interest and see who might be interested. We're very much taking a look at that.
Okay. Give them the make move offer. But other than that, you guys killed it. Or whatever great way to say kill is. I have a problem with that in these meetings. So I'm all for it. I don't even think we need to talk about the other two. So.
Okay, so I got caught up on the aquatic park, right? But I want to talk about the entire design now. You know what I like about this is I like how grand it feels. And I want a grand feeling. I think we deserve a park that gives you that feeling. The city and the residents, it's about time that we deliver something that makes you feel like, hey, this is cool. It isn't a run-of-the-mill kind of thing, right? And I think we're ready for that. I think our residents are ready for that. I think Corona is ready for that. And that's what I like about this, is that it gives me that feeling. I can imagine this huge building, or this building shaped in this way with this open space. It allows itself for grand events. It allows for these kind of experiences. So that's what I love most, that emotion that it elicits, is that it feels, of the three designs, it feels the most grand. I think for practical purposes, the skate park and the pickleball court placement, that's probably not the right place to have both of those. The aquatic center, you know how I feel about that. I like the idea of having parking close to the buildings, right next to the building, because if you're having a big event or whatever the case may be, like that's where folks, like the bigger parking lot should be adjacent to that. I'm glad that there's capacity here, and I'm also really glad that there's preservation of trees. When it comes to the, what is that part? Is it Market? What was this called over here in the corner? Or like the Market Plaza? I don't understand the concept of a market plaza.
So I think this was just a So this is a significant entry point for the site. So
Yeah.
it probably wants to be fairly open.
Yeah.
So the idea was that you have this big open space and the big canopy of the tree, and so you could have, markets or, farmers markets or festivals or tents and kiosks set up there.
Is
you
it-
could also have, farmers markets along this entire promenade or along this entire
Oh, I see. So you could start a farmer's market there or a market, and
Yeah,
then
so this
have it
could all
along the
be-
promenade.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be super cool. That would be super cool. And then, yeah, I think that's how I feel about this. I like the windows and the potential to have a lot of entry points. I am concerned about the potential of having a lot of secure, entry points. I think that can lend itself to, I'd like to get the chief's opinion on it. It can lend itself to maybe some security issues, and it would look amazing, but is it practical? Is it safe? Would it be safe if we were to ever have a large scale event here to have so many points of exit?
We're going to engage with. We're going to engage with
The
your
chief.
staff,
Wonderful.
with the chief, and we'll talk more about security and the way the building can operate at different times, different ways. So,
Okay.
at certain times, everything can be locked up, and there can be one entrance, and basically everybody can be monitored.
Mhm.
But let's say there's a big festival, and there are lots of people around. Things could be opened up and be much more free flowing, and a lot of things could be in between, where you have people in a given space that are operating that space with a group, like a classroom.
Okay. So ultimately, of the designs of the three schemes, and I like elements from the others. No, but I'm saying the grand feeling. They're asking us to give us feedback, right? And the feeling that this building and this clearance gives me, I think this is really wonderful.
One last question. Where are the slides and swing sets at this location here?
Over here.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we didn't forget the basics.
Oh, hey, Ms. Finch, how many folks did we have at our last summer concert series, like an average, when we moved it to the 6th Street?
It was about 2,000 to 3,000.
Okay, thank you.
Can I make one comment just to brag a little bit? Remind me your name again? Chris. When I was showing this to my wife, I thought it looked like a Frank Gehry building, who's a very famous architect. And turns
Yes,
out
you guys don't know him?
Chris worked for Frank Gehry's office.
Yeah.
Oh, and a partner from Frank Gehry's office. And if you don't know Frank Gehry, just go look at the downtown Disney Center, and that's Frank Gehry.
We have a very talented staff.
Yeah, so
Don't talk about the.
this building will be legendary if it gets chosen and the others go away. So that's all I got.
Next one. So, as we said before, all the schemes are interchangeable to some degree, meaning that we should look at these plans as almost like a platform for discussion, right? Because we don't have the right recipe, and so I think that we get it together. So through discussion and through collaboration, I think we can understand what are the ingredients that are going to make this the great park. So in particular, this one over here really wanted to build off of these counterpoints between the nature and the human-made nature. And so I'm going to speak a little bit for the building. So what we like about this building, in particular internally, we like that by form, this building creates a different type of experience. So if that one is an entry point, you enter and you exit, or you linearly enter and you go to where you need to go. Here, imagine yourself, you enter the door through the main lobby, and then from there, you're going to have a mixture of people doing different things. And so this, by form, fosters an identity of diversity, of multicultural diversity. And so people that are acting differently will engage themselves together. And so we envision that these can spark an idea of a community that is multi-diverse, that wants to foster this idea of a central core where people can get together, a sense of togetherness that is represented also in the way that the building is shaped. Now, you might think that this is it's a courtyard building, so it's introverted. No, because we wanted to break it apart and create, this transitional moment where you can have gardens look to one another and potentially open these sides up where you can have this function that engage with this part, this function that engage with this part, and so on. So in that way, it becomes almost like a flower that is opening itself up, and there's this cross-contamination of different influences and experiences that can really make this thing a very live and active community building.
And to build on that a little bit, these spaces that are outdoors but are radiating off of here could also be secured with a wall, berms, fence, a number of different ways so that they're more integrated outdoor spaces with the actual program space. Additionally, they can be closed at these cracks so that these things can all open up into the courtyard. So again, that connection to the outdoors can really be secured but fluid.
And that's similar with the skate park. You have really direct line of sight of the building to the skate park here, so you can really keep an eye on it, and it's going to feel much more safe.
The one thing I really, well, not one thing, I liked a lot of things about it, but I like and I'm guessing this is kind of an indoor-outdoor space.
Yes.
I like that, I know you guys have used it in some of your other designs, that, movable furniture and indoor-outdoor space. And that is the one thing I think that it's missing there. But it sounds like you could incorporate it, but I do like that. I do like the skate park being a little bit closer, so it could be watched. And then, of course, I think that even though that one is supposed to be the walking loop, I think all of them are and could be. But and the other one I like is at the south end here. Is that a berm that comes up, or at the end of the
so I
piece
think
here?
so. The idea, the grade is actually following this way. So
Got it.
this if there were kind of a seating element or an amphitheater element, it's probably kind of nestled in this way. But the idea also is that this whole face could either be a projection space, or this could open up and you could have all sorts of events kind of indoor, outdoor. So this could still function in the same way as that one in terms of events.
Okay, yeah, I didn't necessarily, and the other part, thank you for including the sun direction too, because as anyone that's been at even our summer concerts here, getting brutalized by the sun before the concert starts, and you're like, oh. Yeah. So I consciously thought about that and saying, okay, so if you were a performer and you're on the east side, the afternoon you're getting murdered. If you're on the west side and it's being projected the other way, then like how do you justify those, especially when the topography is slanting to the east?
So when I saw this one for the first time, I really liked that building. I understood that community center better than that one. I was more intrigued by that one because I just didn't really grasp how it would all work. I like this one in the sense that the skate park, potentially, if you were to enclose it, even with 8-foot wrought iron or whatever, you can only get to it during operating hours through the community center, which would all but eliminate your graffiti problem. Now, if we aren't as concerned about graffiti, then yeah, we have other options. Maybe we do the whole thing in a professional mural designed by the skaters or something to maybe try to minimize how often it gets tagged, because those professional murals, at least from our experience, don't really get tagged because people kind of respect them. So that's something. I did like originally the pool here, even maybe better than the one over there on the first one, but I wanted to, you'd have so many people coming through here nonstop just for that location, and it would, I don't know, seems like it'd be nicer to have it closer to the street, closer to parking, closer to drop off and pick up. When I saw the grass area, I go, man, it's kind of small, and that's, a park, the number one reason a park is for grass, I think, grass and trees. And it is huge probably, right? But it doesn't seem like it when you're looking at the first one.
Yeah.
Okay,
that one's actually larger than the existing central lawn space because we pushed we extended the lawn south towards 6th Street.
Okay.
This one, it's pretty it's comparable.
Two things, meaning that this can be sized differently if we want, and the beauty of a courtyard building is that you can rotate them.
Mm-hmm.
So we can keep the entrance where it's set, and we can change some.
You can put the pool over here.
Yes, sir.
Which would give you a little bit of buffer.
Exactly.
To the homes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot.
Yeah.
And I think here, we have the gym here where we can have a blank wall where you can imagine it being a backdrop for concerts, for projection, for all kinds of events on the lawn.
Got it.
So I thought this was probably, it was a very creative design. I thought it was, like I saw where it was going. No, it's very creative. It's very creative. I wonder though if in its creativity, it's really splitting up the park a little too much into too many little sections. I too thought that by comparison, the community canvas was small. I agree with Wes, the outside of the ballroom, the attachment of a indoor-outdoor space. I think that could really lend itself, like that's where I would love to see windows that open, that can get integrated, with an enclosed space that you can have. I could see that space being used really cool. I can't envision what would be done in the center. and therefore, I would wonder, is that like a missed opportunity? Is that misused space or what have you? So I thought it was creative, but it felt a little too clustered to me, a little too parceled. But I agree with the skate park positioning, having it next to such an active area is going to lend itself to be a little bit more secure and a little bit better well maintained. So those are the elements of this that I liked.
Thank you. Well, you guys have genius in all three. You know that. The back in the 40s and 50s and 30s, the municipal plunge was over here. And then when they built that building, they built it after the municipal plunge. If you look at the front, it's the same style. So I do like the pool kind of over there paying homage to the once municipal plunge. And then it's all great. It's all good. I like that form follows function, and you guys are you're in good shape.
Thank you.
Let's do 3 parks. Okay. We needed to give you an exploration with the building on the other side. We needed to. Because we wanted to, provide all the different type of configuration that can spark dialogue and inquiries that can be, important for making decisions intelligent. So this building over here really wants to be, dodging and respecting in a way different from the other ones, the existing trees over here, but at the same time wants to have a very functional point of entry off of the existing Corona. So you shoot out, you park your car, you enter it from here, and you have all your park at your fingertips. So it's a very different point of view. And the building itself, it's a little bit of an hybrid solution between the other two, meaning that presents some of the conditions of the courtyard with the central lobby and some condition of the linear building with the distribution that follows function, to quote you.
Okay. I kind of skipped over this one pretty quick, you guys. I like the ideas of walking paths and trails and nature and flowers. I think that's all beautiful. I think you can incorporate some of that in whatever is chosen. So I don't like the building over there. I don't really have any strong feelings for this at all.
I actually like the building over there, but the problem is do we have all the other stuff that doesn't really play well with it. And I love the idea of how you split the building to go around into, and frankly, that is the older part of the park. This area was, where those buildings are now and where the parking lot there was actually a racetrack, a small racetrack that only ran for about 5 years, 6 years. They did horse races and bikes and stuff in the 30s over there, kind of in that area there. And then when they developed the rest of the park, then they moved the racetrack over into Norco now. But that's probably one of the reasons why those trees are like that, because they were probably around as potential shade at some point for that. I think from this, the two skate parks, and then where they are, I think we'll have the same issues just because of the distance. And I think we've given you some themes. I think the pickleball courts being here is probably the best location because it's away from homes. Same thing over there. I'm again worried about the pool sound. I always tell people go to a pool. Yeah, go to a pool and just hang out there while they're doing anything. I mean, talk about water polo where they blow the whistle every 20 seconds. It's a loud thing, but I do love the way this loops through. And I think it's, like I said earlier, I think there's a way to incorporate that in as well. And what was this supposed to be again?
That's existing utilities.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
But these are the existing courts, actually. We didn't.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, this is the only design that actually kept them in the same place. And I know those were mitigation for the for this to come in. I think that was it. I think in all the designs you guys actually put, I went and talked to some of the residents that live around there and asked them, those questions about what do you miss about the park? What do you miss that if they saw some of the original design, what do you miss about the park now? And the fact is that they like the picnic areas. They like, they want to be able to go to the park and because it's their backyard. It's their front yard. It's where you have very large families that live in this area too. And just like in my neighborhood when I was a kid, the parks were if my extended family comes to dinner for a holiday, there's 100 people. None of our houses are going to fit 100 people. So we were at the nearest park. So I think that's what people used this park for in the past. And I've, like I said, talked to a few people that live over here, and it's one of the things that they miss, or they still use it for. They actually go in the places that are away from being used by our homeless neighbors. But I like the intentional use of space and how many trees you guys are saving here. It looks great, and the palm trees. Thank you.
Thanks. Yep. Oh, you go? Oh. It's great. It's wonderful. I think people put a lot of value into walking, so to have this beautiful walking trail will pull a lot of people. And if you can take that walking element and throw it over there, that would be great. And that's my comments.
You can do that.
Thanks.
Okay. What I liked about this design, I like this entry plaza, like to the building. And design number 1 doesn't call out an entry plaza, but it's like you have an entry plaza. But whatever features you're thinking of, and with a little more detail for an entry plaza to make that grand building feel more grand, I think would be really cool. This walking trail, I agree with Tom wholeheartedly. If design number 1 could have a walking trail, I think that would be really, really awesome. And as for the building, it kind of feels like a compromise. It feels like a compromise for the design and also the functions, because that's super creative and I can understand, aesthetically. And then this, I love that you're dancing with the trees and avoiding them, but it feels like, again, like we're compromising to get this building to fit the space rather than get this bigger building. So I appreciate that you put it on the side. I agree that not owning these 2 corners diminishes the impact of this building. And I don't want to share that visual with things that we can't control. So putting the building on this side makes the most sense because we can control everything that looks around it. And that's it.
Real quick, Mayor, if it's okay with you, we have a couple of commissioners here. Could we get their input or just there's some of their thoughts since they put a lot of work in this as well?
You want them to come up here?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioners, beloved commissioners, before you guys give great advice and better than ours, Sylvia's going to read Tony's comments into the show.
So the comments from Councilmember Tony Daddario. My overall thoughts. In my opinion, I believe the best layout of the park puts the aquatic center and any buildings on the east end of the park closest to Rimpau, the skate park and play structure on the west end of the park. I would also like to see incorporated into this plan the utilization of the city-owned empty lot on the southeast corner of Rimpau and Corey into additional parking for the new city park. All of the plans, in my opinion, are underparked, and this additional 40 to 60 spaces will be needed. This lot can have the necessary signage for park hours, plus no overnight parking, etc. That will make it easy to enforce. There is even a tow yard on Corey that I'm sure would be happy to help us. I'm also very concerned about the size of the buildings in all three proposals. They range between 45 to 50,000 square feet and each assume about 50% of the cost of construction. We have a park system, not just one park, and it seems as if we're trying to make this a be-all, end-all. I also don't think we have the need or programming to support such a massive building. Now, if there was a report or data or even a plan that clearly outlines our existing programming and needs, overlaying our existing facilities that could show shortcomings, etc., that justify the need for the 45 to 50,000 square foot facility, I'd love to see it. Regarding the flowering fields, I like this concept best. I think the interior courtyard of the building structure, although too big of a structure, gives the community lots of options for year-round outdoor events, taking advantage of Corona's weather. This space should be designed to be purpose-built for events, with built-in power, water, drainage areas for vendors to use, restrooms accessible from the courtyard without having to go into the building. Plus, the backside of the building, currently showing a basketball court, can be built as a stage or movie night, etc. I really like how the west end of the park looks like or is designed as a flower. That will allow for shaded play and picnics. With the south side of the park listed as Promenade Marketplace will allow for greater possibility of civic events in conjunction with the closing of 6th Street at Grand and Rimpau for events. Using the two clear distinct flowers as a reference, I'd like to see the skate park petal switched with one of the play petals so that the big skate park resides on the west end of the park. Regarding Nature, Wonder Loop, and Corona Crown, these two designs were my least favorite designs. Although the placement of the amenities in the Corona Crown is my preference, it is lacking a few integral components. Plus, it's the largest building of the three designs. In the flowering fields, there are two separate skate parks listed, one for younger kids and one for more advanced skaters. It is crucial for the safety of all, as there is a big delta in abilities, and one would severely hamper the other and sets the stage for a potential disaster. In both Crown and Wonder Loop, the south side of the park is listed as Botanical Garden, which I think is a miss in comparison with the flowering fields, which shows a big promenade marketplace on the south side. Thanks. Councilmember Tony Daddario.
Okay, it's working? Okay. We'll just start where we currently are. And I think we had Commissioner Bass was in favor of this design, more liking it more than the others, where the other commissioners gravitated towards the other two designs more. So my main point with this and continuously is I keep thinking, as Councilmember Casillas points out, the main issue with the parking next to what you want to be by is very important. So we talked about that. This park remains with the two skate parks in front, which I would say, based on my interaction with residents, this is actually an intimidating factor to City Park currently, and I think you're just inviting the same factor to be an intimidating factor as you drive by or you attempt to find parking. So we were not in favor of that being in that placement there in the front. Overall, my comments on this particular scheme, one of the reasons it was my least favorite was because the main way that the community is going to see this park and be excited to get to it and get into it is going to be driving by. And on the freeway side, there's no drive-by. this park does not advertise itself in this design where you can look through it and really see what you have here, that you've got this big aquatic center, that you've got all these great features. It's just not prominent enough in this nature design. So those were some of my comments. Do you want to add?
Yes, to add to what Michelle has spoken about is that, and I concur with everything she's spoken about, and that on the skate park, for example, it currently invites people who are negative aspect to the park currently, people getting beaten up and things of that sort. So it's a police activity that needs to be rectified. And then more than doubling it here in this particular design kind of goes against the grain of the survey that was done back in 2023. So they had a very low priority percentage points on that aspect of it. I think pickleball was even higher than that by a few percentage points. Secondly, the building, as mentioned last week, was that the building seems to be segmenting the park site. So you go from 20 acres of site to behold to down to 17 or 16 acres in site. I understand the parking lot in that area. And also, thirdly, would be the sports activities against Quarry there seem to be transmitting noise back to the Quarry residents who live there now. And so that would be a negative factor on top of that. So then fourth is that the parking seems to be, in all cases, to be one angled parking, which means you're going to be force people into a one-way roadside point of view, which could go against the grain of people who live there now, who tend to back out and either direction and go west or east. And so you had train people to repark themselves again into their own current driveways. Fifth, I guess, I like the overall design of all three designs. They've addressed all the pieces of the puzzle of the fabric of the community, their needs and desires. So you hit a home run with that by answering those needs. The fact that you have a visual into the park site from the road, that's exciting because, as Michelle mentioned, you drive by going towards downtown or leaving town, for example. I don't know why you want to leave, but if you're here, you see that. I think the view invites you into the park site, just out of curiosity for one part of it, but more importantly, that you're going to want to go there with your kids that Saturday, as mentioned previously. And so that's...
Yeah, and that element's really missing in this design. It doesn't really advertise itself. One of the other things you should mention is we did talk about if Quarry could be a one-way street and a circular positioning for how you're finding parking in any of these designs rather than both ways, which should be something that could be investigated. Yeah, that way as you're moving around the park, you don't have people coming down Rimpau trying to make a left and look for parking, as well as people coming the other way. I could see that a one-way street on Quarry would actually be calming, whichever direction you do it in, would be calming for traffic in front of the homes as well.
How do you feel about the diagonal parking?
I like the diagonal parking. I think it should match a one-way direction. So as you pull out, and then you're not looking for cross traffic as well. So
part of our thinking was this allows you to have more spaces utilizing less maximum parking space, but also allowing families to come and be able to picnic along this edge of the park and be able to have 3 or 4 cars, families sort of gather.
well, we were just extolling the benefits of the angled parking, and then the area by the homes would be designated more for picnicking and relaxing, and so that's also calming. That kind of sums up what you were going for. Yeah.
It's more neighborhood facing.
Neighborhood facing, yeah.
One other question. We didn't really present in any detail, but I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. You can see the line of trees.
Tom, give me your mic, will you, buddy?
You can see the line of trees out there on 6th Street. And it's our proposition that we could create a median there that could be planted and have trees, which we understand is part of what's happening on 6th Street further down towards downtown, so that it creates a visual further up 6th Street that you can really see there's green. And it really starts to enlarge the understanding that there's a park here.
I like that.
As long as we can are we going to keep the same amount of lanes of traffic? Okay, so that was my only concern on the commission side. We talked about that because as you guys being consultants, but this is actually the frontage road to the freeway. So if you slow it down too much, all you're going to do is impact the surrounding neighborhoods because this is just the cut through when you can't get through on the 91. There is no other street. People are really piling off on Main Street. This is where they're going to go. There is no north side that comes across. So that I thought had to be kept in mind before you add to it.
I was just thinking about the massing of the pool and thinking, and you were talking, and Commissioner Munoz was talking about an advertising for the park, and I'd love to find a way to be able to move the pool closer to 6th Street so people could see it.
Well, it is in the other model. That's the beauty of
but
the
it's
other
not.
model.
You can't see it.
Yeah, you can. You can. Let's go over there and we'll do it.
We're going to stop. We're going to let Karen speak because we only have 5 minutes left. So
Sorry
Karen.
about that. First of all, I wanted to thank the city for bringing Rios on board. I could listen to you guys all day from your creativity and the functionality and making it work for our city. Just amazing. I didn't spend too much time on this one either, to be honest with you. I love the idea of the crown hugging the park. I think that's great. I do have an issue, the pop-up event, and I spoke to staff. They did a great job on that, by the way. The skate park, I don't believe belongs here. And the only reason is when you guys took those 3 buildings, and I don't know what slide it was, and you compacted it to one, that was a great idea. I think the same could be done for the skate park. Bring it to the skate park that exists at Santana, enlarge it, enhance it. I love that idea. As far as the trees, thank you for saving the trees. I love that. I see on this model the palm trees. We have 13 trees on Taylor and Citron, and I was really impressed when you said that they are movable, because if you need 13 palm trees, we've got 13 more that we'd love to save. Anyway, as far as a commission, planning commission, we always look for functionality and impact to the surrounding neighbors. I love the idea of parking near the highest functioning, the highest density activities, whether it is the community building or this fabulous aquatic center that's going to be built. The city, I do remember the public outreach, and the aquatic center was the #1. If you look at your own diagrams, skate park is all the way down on the other end. Doesn't mean it doesn't fit. I'm just not sure. I think you could use the space for other functions. I do want to say that I love #1. I just think the crown is amazing. I love that unique building. It'll be iconic in the city. And as long as you have functionality that meets the parking, I think that works great. Thank you.
Why don't we go over to #1 and take a...
No,
that way
we're
we
gonna
can get our
we're gonna
comment
end it.
in real
We're
quick.
gonna we're gonna end it. We're gonna end it.
You don't want to...
I don't. Tony, did
my comments in?
Yeah,
we read them.
You guys understand them? Any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I thought it was perfect, actually. So we're going to go up and do we have one more thing?
Do you have
Can we have a closing?
Thank you.
Simone, thank you so much. Thank you, Bob.
I just had...
All right, Tony, were you watching on the way over?
I was.
Did you want to give some final comments?
No, just as long as you guys got my comments, I mean.
You can use your microphone if you want.
The one that I liked was the flowering fields the most. My concern with all of them are that the buildings are too big.
Yeah.
I think they're 45 and 50,000 square feet, and I'm concerned that we're building something in the, what was that movie, in Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. I just don't know if we have the programming that necessitates the size of those buildings. And I clearly like the buildings towards Rimpau, towards the east end of the park versus the west end of the park, with the pool on the east end of the park as well. I like this one the most because it had 2 skate parks one for different levels, the ages of the kids, which I think is very important. And that was about it. And I like the promenade on Flowering Fields on 6th Street as well, because I think future events will allow us to close 6th between Grand and Rimpau and have a lot of street fair type events. So,
okay.
Ross?
Thank you. I want to say thanks for everybody for putting this together. I agree with Tony on the building size. I've made it pretty clear from the beginning. I thought that 40,000 square feet, and not even counting the 10,000 square feet for the pool, was too large. I'm open to hearing how we're going to be able to do it. I have some questions about some of the size of the rooms, and kind of alluded to them a little bit. But I love the design of one. I think that there's elements from the other two and I think that's what you guys wanted. There are some elements that can be incorporated, and I saw a lot of nodding heads, so I'm assuming that'll still happen. But I think the size of the building is still something that needs to be hashed out a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you again for all of the thoughtful input from not just Rios and our commissioners, but from the community. And I've really enjoyed this process so far. I think it's been really thorough. So I love process and rules. So I shared my thoughts about the design. I believe that the crown design is the grandest of them all, and and I believe it's the most iconic, and I believe it's the most appropriate for where we're going as a city. I like the building. I like the functionality. I would like to see an added loop to that design, a walking loop. I am concerned that the aquatic center has been downsized, and that from the original conversations. And again, the aquatic center is a priority for the community and for this area. I would like to see maybe some more thought into that entrance plaza to the Crown building. And, the skate park and the flower field, having two for different levels is smart, but I hear the discussion and am open to the thought of, if this isn't the right place for the skate park, then it isn't the right place for the skate park. And we can find a better alternative for that. I like the idea of adding the city-owned lot as parking and creating some one-way directional around the park, soundproofing the pool around Corey, and incorporating that indoor-outdoor space to the ballroom, adjacent to the ballroom. I like the idea of having a street line medium on 6th Street and keeping the building on the east side. So those are like technical stuff, but ultimately, I'll tell you what I like most about this is the fact that we're moving forward with it. It's consistent with everything we've heard. I've now had the honor to serve on this council. This is my second year of my second term. And what I have heard from residents and what gets people the most excited is us actually having vision and determination to get something done in the downtown area and the 6th Street corridor. And I think it's really time for us to deliver. So I'm looking forward to the next steps in this process. I'm looking forward to building something that is iconic, that is worthy of our community, and that is worthy of where we're at and where we're headed. So thank you for that.
Guys, great job. Let's start off by saying a larger building does allow for growth, though, guys. So I'm not scared by that. I am interested in hearing more about it from the city manager as far as programming and if it would be fully programmed immediately, or would it take 5 years to become fully programmed? And if that's the case, that's the case, because eventually we're going to have more and more people moving here. Now, I consider the 6th Street corridor downtown. From my house, it's downtown. From Jackie West Tony's house, it's downtown. Tom lives in downtown, in my opinion. For decades, 6th Street, the whole corridor, City Park, the mall, it's looked horrible. And I know Jacob's going to be, our city manager is going to be presenting some different bond options to us that might allow us to address that whole area and not just put a bunch of money into one place. The whole area potentially could finally be improved. Here's our chance. This is it. This is our chance to finally do something. Decades it's looked like this. It's going to require taking a little bit of a risk. I'm okay with that. It's what I did for a living. What needs to be considered, I think, is the cost and value engineering different parts of it to see, is that really worth it? Do we really need to do that? And we don't know that yet. I also think we need to consider selling the Circle City Center. It's been brought up a couple times, and move all the programming to one location. And it would help offset the cost a little bit. And in regards to the bond, I think we have to ask ourselves, can we make our monthly or our annual mortgage payment and still maintain critical services like public safety, roads, parks, doing the scheduled improvements that we have for our parks and our roads and our trails? Can we do all that while we also make sure we keep a competitively paid workforce? So that's the big question. And we'll know more, I think, in the next few weeks. So those are my comments.
Hey, Jim, which option were you? One?
Combination of 1 and 2 with a little bit of 3 sprinkled in.
That's helpful. That's what they want to hear.
Okay. Tony, what option were you? You were the flowers?
Yeah, I was flowering fields was where I was at. And Mayor, if I could just take 1 second, I don't want to address or redress what Councilmember Steiner said. I don't think any of us are afraid of the risk. We just want to make sure that there's a plan. I know I do. I want to make sure that there's a good plan so that whatever we do, there's a plan behind it. I think that's where we're all at. Or I don't want to speak for everybody, but that's where I'm at. And I think that that's probably my biggest fear is that, are we going to build something that doesn't ever get used properly? So let's make sure that there's a plan to use whatever we build properly.
I actually think 60,000 square feet is too small, but it's good. I did have a couple of comments that the Rios people will hopefully take into consideration. One of the biggest aspects for me really wanting to revitalize the park is because it gave kids that have little rooms or no rooms, or they're sleeping with their brothers and sisters and they don't have a place to do homework. I'm hoping any kid that lives in this area, whichever design it is, has a place to go and do homework. And I hope you keep that in your guys' heads, because the kids are the ones that need to have the win on this project. And then really that's my last. Oh, I have one nerd comment on that one over there. The basketball court's dead center, and if you could put the city seal in the center of the court, that will fit really well. Right, it'll be the center of it all, the city seal. So that's the nerd things I think about. I'm number 1, so I've kept a tally. Number 1 is 3 1/3. Tony's number 2. Wes, you didn't say. Wes, where are you at?
I was number 1. I like number 1 as the design with a couple of the tweaks that I said. One, I'm worried about the sound in both the pool and the pickleball courts being so close to homes. And incorporating the other things that I think I expressed pretty clearly. So I think I saw a lot of shaking heads, so I'm good.
Okay, so other than Michelle's going to kill me after this meeting, I think that's it. Do you need anything from me, Jacob?
No, Mayor, thank you to the council. Thank you to Rios. Very productive session, and this was the clarity that I think we needed and what the team needed. So thank you all for your help today.
Good job, you guys. Real genius in it.